On your Monday episode of Locked On Raptors, the Cleveland Cavaliers have exemplary guard play. The Toronto Raptors, not so much.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Monday, November the 25th, and I'm your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 11 seasons on various platforms. You can find all my work over on Blue Sky at woodleyshawn.bsky.social. You can find me over on Instagram at Locked On Raptors, and of course, you can join us in the Locked On Raptors Discord server. Link in the description of the podcast. Come hang out with folks who just love to not work and instead talk about fake Jakob Poeltl trades. They're sick. Come be sick with these people. Give them some support. They need it in the Discord. Please join us over there. It's a great place. Come hang with sickos just like you. Of course, you can also subscribe to the daily and free Locked On Raptors newsletter. We got a fancy little QR code on the screen for anyone watching. I'm not very good at pointing where I'm supposed to be pointing. I'm reaching over Vivek to point towards the QR code on the screen. If you're watching, just scan that and you can subscribe to the newsletter. If you're not watching, you can go to the link in the description of the podcast and subscribe to the newsletter. It's great. It's free. Original writing for me 5 days a week. Katie Heindel 4 times a week. Michael Shearer from Basketball Poetry once a week. Josh Lloyd Fantasy Tips. There's lots of reasons to go and subscribe. So go and do that right now. Today's show is brought to you by friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. And we get rolling here talking about a Toronto Raptors 122-108 loss to the Cleveland Cavaliers on Sunday night. To be expected, the result, at least, against the Cavaliers, who are really good, are now 17-1 and keep the train rolling with their victory over the Raptors. I thought, overall, pretty noble effort from the Raptors. A couple stretches where it got away from them. We're going to get into all of it today. We're going to get into, of course, our good, bad, and as we always do when we recap a game. We're going to talk a little about Big V, Vivek Jacob's theory on how maybe the Raptors can approach the matchup against the Cavaliers in the future. And, of course, we'll get into our big takeaways, talk about guard play, and much more. And here to do it all, as mentioned, it's Vivek Jacob from Raptors in 7 at Sportsnet. Big V, how the hell are you, pal?
I'm doing great, Sean. Thanks for having me. Ready to get right into this. Start the week off with a bang.
Let's do it. The Raptors did not start a week off with a bang, though they flirted with it for stretches of the game against the Cavaliers. Some really good work from some bench and in-between lineups with Jonathan Mogbo playing some nasty defense and Scottie Barnes, frankly, looking like a monster on the defensive end as well. Jamal Shed doing some fun stuff. But overall for me, Big V, the takeaway from this one was simply the Cavaliers guards are extremely good, and all of a sudden Ty Jerome is dropping 26 pieces for some reason. Okay, sure. So you have Jerome, Donovan Mitchell, Darius, Garland. They're just a lot to handle for a Raptors team that right now, without Emmanuel Quickley, does not have much in the way of traditional guard play. And look, the NBA is built on large dudes now. Ceilings are raised and driven by how many wings and bigs you have with multifaceted skills. But for floor raising, it's still a guards game, baby. And the Raptors right now, they can reach nice peaks with their size and their positional versatility and their running and being large and all that stuff. But without good guard play, the bottom's going to fall out sometimes. That happened in the first quarter of this game. It happened at the start of the fourth quarter of this game, and it ends up in a Raptors 14-point loss. Big V, what were your impressions of the guard disparity in this game? 68 points to 8 turnovers for the Cavs trio. The Raptors' traditional guards, Davion Mitchell, Jamal Shed, 12 points, 8 turnovers. Therein lies the difference, I'd argue.
Yeah, that was significant. I mean, obviously, Mitchell, Jerome, Garland were really, really good. I mean, Garland, relative to how he started this season, wasn't amazing. Obviously, we don't know how much that moment when he had the ankle issue bothered him, but still, it felt like, the one thing I've been going back and forth on is, especially with the way the Cavs started out, even with the way the Raptors were able to cut back in, chip at the lead, how much of that was like, okay, the Cavs just were able to keep them at arm's length throughout. And
sure,
it was one of those where it's like, oh, okay, this is a fun comeback. And then every time the Cavs needed to push the lead back out, they just did. um, yeah,
Usually in the
I
form
think,
of Donovan Mitchell or Ty Jerome hitting a banger pull-up three, frankly.
yeah. And Garland had a couple of those too. So I
Mhm.
think that's where that guard play makes a big difference. I think when you look at this matchup where you need with the Cavs interior rim protection between
Mhm.
Barrett Allen and Evan Mobley, you need to be able to hit shots from the outside. And I think
Yeah.
the Raptors kind of came out at the start of the game saying, okay, this is something that we need to do. You saw Gradey Dick gunslinging right from the beginning. And I think Ochai is kind of finding himself in this offense now with Scottie in the mix. Uh, RJ Barrett is it's not his natural role to pull
Mhm.
up for those threes. And Davion Mitchell, we know, does not really want to shoot the ball. So
Yeah.
I think that's where, structurally you see the biggest problems where it's like, okay, the Cavs are able to protect the inside. Um, and Scottie took, was he 0 for 5 from 3 in the first half?
Mhm.
So I think that's where it's like if you're not able to create that gravity, that pressure from the outside, then it makes it all the more difficult.
Yeah, this was a game that was screaming for Emmanuel quickly, right? Because it just, yeah, this is a matchup that's challenging for the Raptors. They are a team that lives at the rim. That's their whole identity. It's their entire personality. And the Cavaliers make it really difficult to live at the rim. I mean, the Raptors took 42% of their shots at the rim in this game. That's great. They hit 50% of them per clean the glass. That's less great. And yeah, they just needed some extra stretch, a little bit of extra volume, a little accuracy, right? Like, they leaned on Davion Mitchell, Jamal Shed, and Jonathan Mogbo for 5 of their 12 threes in this game. That's not math you want to be leaning on. Like, you need some volume from credible three-point shooters. Gradey Dick took 9 threes. That's great. He hit 3 of them. You'd like to see maybe 1 or 2 more of those fall to give them a better shot. But yeah, this is just, and I credit Scottie Barnes for letting it fly. Like, they needed that three-point threat. They needed that volume. They didn't go down. I have no problem with Scottie testing his range. This season is about, I think, trying to reestablish that three-point shot for him in a lot of ways because, as we saw a couple times last night, Scottie Barnes attacking a closeout, it's game over for everybody else. And if you can start to draw those more, that's great. But they didn't have that traditional pull-up shooting guard threat that Emmanuel quickly is that I think kind of could have helped to unspool the Cavs defense a little bit. It was a lot of just like driving into a whole lot of arms and length and Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen swatting stuff at the rim. It's a difficult matchup. Jakob Poeltl can't go and eat like he usually does against Jarrett Allen because Jarrett Allen's out there eating his lunch. It's just a really difficult matchup for him. Jarrett Allen is freaking awesome. And I thought, too, they kind of lost this game in large part, Big V, because they tried to make it into a half court game. Like, the start of this game in particular, like, really bogged down with that starting five of Barnes, Barrett, Agbaji, Dick, and Poeltl, just like trying to run half court stuff against a Cavs team that is the number one half court offense in the NBA by a mile, like 3 points per 100 possessions better than the next best half court team. Like, you're not going to win like that. And I thought the Raptors started to kind of, soften things up a little bit when they started to run a little bit and work in semi-transition. There was a possession early in the first quarter where it was kind of their first easy bucket of the night where Gradey Dick gets like a quick outlet on the wing. He gets up real quick, gets into a quick give and go with Jakob Poeltl before the defense is set, and he gets a layup out of it. And like, that's the type of stuff where the Raptors were at their best last night, when it wasn't just kind of sizing up the Cavs trees and trying to figure them out in the half court. And it's a lot harder to play fundamental half court offense when you don't have steady guard play at all times. And we saw that bear out. What have you made of the starting five here? Obviously, Davion Mitchell gets subbed in for Ochai in the second half to start the third quarter. They get trucked in that stretch of minutes, same as they did in the first quarter. What have you made of the sort of guardless or point guardless starting five, where it's kind of Scottie and RJ kind of doing the dual ball handling thing? It's not a perfect situation. I don't have any problem with it considering who else they have, but I'm curious what you think.
Yeah, I think it has looked a little clunky at times.
Mhm.
And I think, especially in terms of the spaces that different players occupy, there's been a bit of that mishmash.
Mhm.
And I think that's made things a little difficult. I do think it's been trending this way. If you look at the previous game, obviously it was this starting five, but if you look at to close the first half, you had Mitchell in there as well as Mogbo. And then to close the second half against the Wolves, you had Mitchell in with the rest of those 4 guys instead of Agbaji. So I think because of what Mitchell has brought defensively and because of the fact that he's been able to defend these 2 matchups better than Agbaji, while Agbaji has also, not been the same offensively. He's had a couple of nice drives here and there, but outside of that, it hasn't really worked out. So I'm not surprised it went that way. And I think if you look at the Cavs, specifically at the guards, you think it makes more sense because they've got 2 small guys.
Sure.
So I can definitely see it from that standpoint. And yeah, I don't think there's like a wrong, or a bad choice here.
Yeah.
Just because of how, I guess, not ineffective, but it hasn't been overwhelmingly positive one way or the other.
Yeah, it's a bunch of imperfect options, and they found their best looks with sort of transitional lineups where they're pairing different guys. We'll get into that a little bit coming up later on in the show. Mitchell was tough in this one offensively. Like, they needed something from him, and 6 turnovers is just not going to cut it. And a lot of them just like really basic. And Jamal Shed, I thought, had some really nice minutes, his best minutes in a while, I'd say, kind of playing 2 ways, hit those couple of threes, which were absolute life givers for the Raptors in that third quarter. But you can't count on that all the time. And again, the lack of shooting, the lack of just half court juice from their guards to kind of get them into their stuff and get Mobley and Allen thinking and moving, just not there. And you need it to be there against a team that's 17-1. The Cavaliers are really freaking good and a really difficult matchup for the Raptors based on what the Raptors want to do and what they lack. We'll get into on the other side here in just one sec, an idea that Big V has of how to potentially go against the Cavaliers in this matchup, maybe against the grain of what the sort of consensus might be of how to approach it. We will get into Big V's theory for small ball being the answer against Cleveland. We'll do that coming up in just one sec. Today's show is brought to you by Skims. And Skims, you may not know, now has underwear made for men. They've obviously got a wonderful women's line as well. Super comfortable stuff. My wife has some. She loves them. She swears by them. And I got sent a pair as well. And man, oh man, do I love Skims. They are incredibly comfortable. I am someone who runs hot. I am someone who gets very sort of uncomfortable very quickly because I sweat a lot. If we're going to give a lot of information, we're going to do it here. And Skims help me to not get super hot. They're very airy. They're very light. They're super soft. They don't move around. They just stay on your body the way they're intended. And I am a big fan of their stretch 5-inch boxer brief. They are awesome. I'm not a boxers person. I don't need like bunches of pants underneath my pants. What are we doing here? We're not children. I need that tight brief, baby. And Skims really provides it. Super breathable. I wear them while I play basketball. It's a great way to kind of have a nice underlayer that's not going to make me too hot. You should go check them out right now. Shop Skims Men's at skims.com/lockedonnba. Let them know we sent you. And after you place an order, select podcast in the survey and select our show, Locked On Raptors, in the drop-down menu that follows. And if you're looking for the perfect gift for the whole family, Skims just launched their biggest holiday shop ever. Also available at skims.com/lockedonnba. That's skims.com/lockedonnba. Go get yourself some comfy underwear, baby. Back at it here with Big V, Vivek Jacob from Raptors in 7, his Substack newsletter, and Sportsnet. Great NBA coverage at large over there. Big V, you have a theory about how to approach this matchup with the Cleveland Cavaliers. And for my money, this might be the single hardest matchup for the Raptors to contend with in the NBA. There's the guard disparity we talked about. There's the Cavs being designed to neutralize the thing the Raptors do best, which is score at the rim. It's a really difficult one. Scottie Barnes, Evan Mobley, like that's Mobley guards Barnes as well as anybody, I think. It's tough for Barnes to get loose, although I thought he had some nice signs in the fourth quarter of kind of finding his groove a little bit, getting downhill, all that fun stuff we like from him. But yeah, go off, King. You think small ball might be the answer against the Cavs? It's a little bit maybe counterintuitive considering how large the Cavs are, but lay out your thesis here for me, please.
Yeah, so I think just watching this matchup and the way it's played out the last couple years, if you remember, it was last season or maybe even the season before where Scottie, he had his typical fourth quarter Scottie, and he was literally going full bully ball against Jared Allen.
Mhm.
Um, and I think when you look at what happened last night, some of those best moments were when Mogbo and Barnes were at the 4-5.
Yeah.
And so while they're not the biggest guys in this matchup, they do have enough bulk at least,
Mhm.
and Jared Allen, like going back to the point of how good the guards are for Cleveland, if the offense starts going through Jared Allen, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
And again, when you think about when RJ and Gradey were having to carry the offense, what Mazzulla said about, hey, yeah, Yak is awesome. Yak is a bear. But at the end of the day, if it's going through Yak instead of RJ instead of Gradey, that's still a win.
Sure.
And I
Yeah.
think there is a way to kind of funnel that when you look at overall, like Yak has not had the best time in that matchup with Jared Allen.
Mhm.
Obviously, his rebounding is super important. He finishes with 19. He's got 8 on the offensive end. And so, by no means is this to say that, oh, Yak can't play against Cleveland. It's
Mhm.
just, I think maybe the Raptors need more small ball than they do need Yak in this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, it's a similar idea to what I talked about a couple weeks ago when they played the Celtics, where I kind of went in on. I guess it wasn't a couple weeks ago. Time is moving slow and fast at the same time. It was like 10 days ago they played the Celtics, but the idea that you're just not going to match the Celtics for 3-point shooting. You got to kind of go counter to what they do. It's like trying to play small ball with the Warriors. Trying to play big ball against the Cavaliers, like they're better at it than anybody else because that front court is so dynamic and so nasty at the rim, and they are so good on scoring in the interior. Like maybe there is something to the idea of just trying to speed them up, get small. I talked about the transition stuff earlier. The Raptors just didn't run enough in transition in this game, and a lot of that is they were playing this sort of traditional half court, base lineup with Yak and kind of counting on pick and roll and stuff like that. If you're running and playing more chaos ball, which is where the Raptors found their best last night in the sort of Mogbo, Barnes, Boucher, Barrett, Shed lineup. I think Mitchell was in there for one of those stretches. Ochai was in there for one of those stretches. Those lineups just they create havoc, right? They force live ball turnovers and usually pretty high up the floor because of the way they kind of mess with opposing ball handlers with that length. And, if that's something you can kind of lean on to throw the Cavs and make them off kilter and make them feel uncomfortable, that might be the way to go and try to, take it to them. I think they maybe don't quite have enough shooting to properly do it. If you had like more of a stretchy big, that'd be amazing. Or if Scottie was, nailing them at a 38% clip, it would change the dynamic a little
Exactly.
bit
Yeah.
too. But I don't think it's a bad idea. At the very least, it's like it's like throwing but those lineups against the Cavs in particular, it's like throwing out a 102 mile an hour, sinker baller after, starting a junk ball guy who throws 86 for the first 6 innings, right? It's just such a change of pace that I'm not surprised those were the best flourishes the Raptors had. Maybe they can't sustain it over the course of a full game, but, there certainly is something to the idea of those like Scottie Mogbo front court lineups that I'm excited to watch for very, very many years to come, dude. What were your thoughts on the way that lineup in particular, the Scottie, RJ, Shed, Barrett plus a fifth group? I think it was Boucher for one stretch, actually, not Mitchell, and then it was Ochai in the second half.
Yeah.
Both had the best 2 stretches of the game, I'd argue, for the Raptors. What do you like about that group? What did you like in particular about what you saw from them last night? Seems like an absolute headache to try to play against those guys.
Yeah, I think that's exactly where I was going. They're just so active on the
Mm-hmm.
defensive end, and it just feels like as an offensive player, you have to think twice about every pass you're going to make,
Yeah.
and that gets you into even more trouble. And that's how the Raptors were able to get out in transition, create some easier opportunities, and then I think Mogbo again as that connective piece is just able to find guys at the right time or is able to just know where to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the activity level is something that you really need against a Cavs team that, you know, maybe is not able to be all helter skelter in that same way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that was an advantage that they created. And just to go back to my original point, like with Yak in this matchup, I do think it's something where, hey, at the end of the day, he's not one of the elite bigs in the game. And I think when you look across teams, when you don't have that elite big, it is leaning into more of a timeshare. I mean, we saw that with JV and Serge Ibaka, right? Like nice bigs, but there's going to be matchups where one is preferred over the other, right? And so I think this might be a matchup where it's like, hey, what does it look like if Yak is coming off the bench?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's. I don't even know if I'd go as far as off the bench, but just like maybe he doesn't close, or maybe he
Right.
yeah, you're probably never going to see him come off the bench for any. This is just being realistic, politics wise, but yeah, certainly an interesting notion. And like the thing too is, yes, you're playing quote unquote small ball, but when you're rolling out enormous dudes positionally at other positions, right? Like against the Cavs guards, that can be a problem. We're going to play right now, Big V, a little impromptu game of what sound did you make? Our favorite onomatopoeia heavy game here on the podcast. There was a possession in, I think, the third quarter stretch where it was the Scottie, Barrett, Mogbo, Shed, and Ochai Agbaji configuration that really went on a nice run. I think they cut it to like 4 at one point, if I'm not mistaken. It got really tight. There's a possession where Scottie Barnes picks up Ty Jerome full court and just completely harasses him, forces him to pick up his dribble just over half court. And Jerome makes this really dangerous rainbow pass to the nail that Jonathan Mogbo just explodes and blows up, gets the steal, goes the other way. What sound did you make when that sequence of Scottie Barnes and Jonathan Mogbo teaming up with the power of friendship to get a steal took place? He's not expecting that.
No, but it was
that.
evil and cold-blooded, and it was awesome.
Yeah. Mine was more of a like a shudder of wow, that's horrifying, and we get to watch them do that to other teams for many, many years to come. That's exciting times. But yours was much better. You win this round of what sound did you make? Congratulations. We're gonna come back on the other side.
That might be my first win.
Yeah, I don't know what the prize is. Is it like I don't know, like noise canceling headphones? I don't know. We'll work on the prize for you. A megaphone so you can just make your sounds go to the whole world. Who's to say? Pitch us on prizes, please, in the comments. We will come back on the other side and get into the good, the bad, and the from this game against the Cavaliers as the Raptors fall to 4-13. But that's okay because they're fun. And again, friendship is all that matters. We'll get to that coming up in just one sec. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, the #1 sportsbook in North America. And right now you can tackle the NFL action on FanDuel and earn quite a bit of extra bucks if you win your first $5 bet. That's right. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. That's super fun. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the exact same page where you go and place your bets. It's all a very user-friendly interface on the app. You can go and peruse all of the in-game lines. Maybe you think that I don't know. What's a football team? The Jacksonville Jaguars. Are they good? Probably not. They're the Jaguars. I think they're historically bad. But if you think they're going to go score on a touchdown drive, or they're not going to score, you can throw some money down on that at FanDuel.com. Just join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. It's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at Game Time, the best place to go buy tickets for the sporting events, concerts, theater shows you want to go to. It's wonderful, and Game Time Picks makes it super easy because they filter out the fluff to show you only incredible deals and the great seats you want to sit in, so you don't have to go and waste time searching through thousands of tickets. They just tell you what the best ones at the best prices are. That is pretty Sweet. They have game time picks. Of course, they also have all-in pricing where you toggle this feature on in the app and it shows you exactly what you're going to pay. No back-end fees that surprise you or anything like that. You get the full picture just by toggling on the all-in pricing feature. And you get seat views as well. You get a panoramic view of your seat so you know exactly what you're going to be seeing when you go. Maybe you've never been to a venue before. Maybe you, like me, like to check out new baseball stadiums and want to know what the best places to sit are. The seat views can really help with that. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Now the Game Time app. Create an account. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Wrapping things up here with Big V Vivek Jacob with the good, the bad, and the from the Toronto Raptors. 122-108 loss to the Cleveland Cavaliers on Sunday night. A thing we liked, a thing we didn't like, and a thing that's got us a little bit intrigued from the latest Toronto Raptors basketball game. I will give you the floor, sir. What you got for your good?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty easy one for me. I think Jonathan Mogbo was just awesome in this game.
You took mine, damn it. That's okay. We could do double Mogbo Mania. This is great.
Double Mogbo. Yeah, I think right from the moment he came in, like, obviously we saw the Cavs jump out to that big advantage, and then for him to come in and just have this impact. And I think that's the thing that stood out to me since the time he started playing this season is just he comes in and it's pure impact basketball. And he is really smart, especially for a rookie. And I think he will have the offense come along. We've seen a little bit of that floater start to come out.
He's looking at the rim. What? Don't look now, but he's looking at the rim. It's crazy.
And I think as that starts to develop and really come along, we're going to see him with more minutes. We'll see how many of those corner threes he knocks down this season. And I think that would be a huge development. I think that would be the thing that would just like make everything pop.
No doubt. Yeah, he's the kind of guy who I think does enough stuff that the three doesn't necessarily have to come along for him to be like an NBA player. But if he wants to be like a high-level impact NBA player, if the threes come along, that gets very easy for a guy who's as good at defense as he already is. It's remarkable. There were multiple possessions of him sliding with Evan Mobley, poking the ball free, making his life hell, sliding with Donovan Mitchell and forcing really difficult misses. Like, he's a marvel defensively for a rookie. It's kind of insane. And I'm having a great time watching it. You mentioned the floaters. You mentioned looking at the rim. Like, if that's going to be part of his package as well, that makes everything a lot easier. He's learning floaters from Jakob Poeltl. I can't imagine a better person to learn from. It's like learning how to be a Jedi from Yoda, baby. I'm super in on Mogbo, man. And here, let me give you a question. Let me pose it to you on the spot here. If I set the over-under at 0.5 all defense teams for Jonathan Mogbo in his career, what are you taking?
Oh, man.
Don't be a coward.
Well, again, I think the question is how much does his offense come along to where he actually gets noticed enough?
Yeah.
You know? Now, he could end up having like one of those, Matisse Thybulle seasons where it's like, okay, this guy is just undeniable and like you got to respect it.
By the way, he's already better at offense than Matisse Thybulle has ever.
Well, as a connector, yeah.
Yeah,
he does enough with that alone. Let's have fun with this and say 2.
So over under, your answer is 2. All right, that's
Over.
how over unders work. Yes. I'm with you. I'm taking the over, man. He's a special defensive prospect, I think, and he's just, it's arms for days. It's really good footwork for days. It's like a nose for the ball. The way he like jumps passing lanes and blows stuff up at the nail. It is pretty impressive stuff. And he's just figuring out how this all works. More, like I said earlier, more of him and Scottie working in 2-man defensive actions. That seems like an absolute nightmare to try to score against. Good luck to anyone trying to do it. Yeah, man, I'm Mogbo Mania is off and running, and I am happy to be the captain of this brigade. It's great. Shout out Jonathan Mogbo. Let's get to the bad. What you got for your bad?
Um, I guess with this one, I was debating, between looking at that just the way the game started out,
Hmm.
and going more individual. Um, so I will say, uh, it'd be too harsh, I think, with the stretch that Yak has had to go individual. I just think it's been a
Yeah,
tough matchup for him.
sure. Yeah.
So yeah, I will say, the start of the game, I think maybe you you really needed to hit shots, and so they went 5 for 21 from three in the first half,
Yeah.
and you give up 38 points in the first quarter, coming off some really good defensive performances. I thought that was the bad, and then really just like set you behind the eight ball. Weren't really able to contain. Ochai struggled with Mitchell, and so that is probably what I'll go with as my bad.
Yeah, the Cavs just like don't miss open threes. They create a lot of them, and they just like hit every single one. It's unless you're George Niang, but other than that, man, yeah, they were just lights out last night. And yeah, I thought there was like some really good moments of defense from the Raptors in this game. Some really good stretches of being on the string. Thought even Gradey Dick had some nice sequences of like sliding over to help and then getting back out and rotating and walling off a drive. Like there were some high points for sure, but the sort of losing the guy at the end of the string and those wide open looks that they created, it was a real death knell for sure. My bad. It's just simply Gradey Dick left this game with calf discomfort. That's not good. You hope it's nothing serious. You hope he's able to come back. Maybe he plays tonight against the Pistons. Maybe they hold him out precautionarily. We'll probably get more information by the time this podcast is posted, but not what you want. The Raptors offense, it struggled in stretches last night, and without Gradey Dick, it's going to struggle. The Raptors are 9.1 points per 100 possessions better when Gradey Dick is on the floor on offense than when he is off. They need him big time, especially without IQ. They can't afford to not have Gradey Dick. Even on his bad shooting nights, he is creating so much space, drawing so much gravity. It just makes everything easier for everybody. You thought the starting five was clunky with Gradey Dick. Without, could be pretty rough stuff, and it might just call for them to start Jamison Battle just to get some form of shooting in there, which would be kind of wild. Let's go to the bad. Oh, sorry, the that is. Let's finish it up with the What you got for your
Uh, with this one, I'm still gonna lean into kind of the small ball stuff.
Yeah.
And I think the one thing that would be interesting to see, and something that would be important for Mogbo to develop, is just as a potential guy operating at the nail against
Sure.
a zone,
Mm-hmm.
and what does that look like? Where are his avenues for his own? Can he get to a point where he's able to knock down that free throw jumper?
Yeah.
And I think that's something that would be a huge development. And so when you think about, potentially, if Mogbo and Barnes are playing together, realistically, you probably have Scottie there more often than not. But at the same time, if it's Mogbo, having being able to grease the wheels, I think that free throw jumper is probably another thing that I would add to the list.
Yeah.
That you want to see him develop, because he'll be able to pick a pass. I think
Yep.
we've seen enough of that to believe in that.
Yeah, especially too, because he's shown a capacity for like blowing by guys in close quarters as well with that like pretty nasty crossover he's got.
Yeah.
And speaking of with Jonathan Mogbo, I have my own but I can't stop talking about Jonathan Mogbo because I'm so Mogbo pilled. He had a possession late in this game where he just got it on the wing and completely dusted a dude off the bounce, and he missed at the rim. He's got to work on the touch around the rim, but Poeltl got a putback off the glass. More of Jonathan Mogbo just completely cooking guys off the bounce, please. He's clearly got the explosiveness for it. What an athlete, man. God, he rules. I'm so in. The for me is RJ and Scottie plus 3 bench freaks. Pretty into it. So far, those lineups, 99th percentile in defense. They've only played like 58 possessions together. Very, very, very tiny sample here, but looking really good defensively. Offense, a bit more of a struggle, but again, just the way they cause chaos and force turnovers and just make life miserable for whoever they're playing. I love that look. I think it's super fun. I think there's maybe some ways to juice up the shooting. I loved the addition of Ochai over Chris Boucher into that lineup in the second half. I thought that really, really hit the spot. Yeah, man, that crew is super fun. And I just think it opens up a lot of really interesting ways to stagger your lineups once they're healthy, right? If you have RJ-Scottie as the basis for some bench lineups, then you can almost run IQ, Gradey, and Jakob as like the backbone of your other in-between lineups. You have enough shooting in that group, and you have obviously, it's kind of a wholly different look with the RJ-Scottie thing. It's more bruising and transition-based and defense-based. But, to go back to the earlier analogy of bringing in a flamethrower of a closer after having a bit more of a sort of soft throwing junk ball pitcher in baseball, it's kind of that similar idea. They can kind of be a chameleon team where they go from this one style of play where it's like super defense focused and long and nasty and chaotic, and then more of a traditional like spread pick and roll base look for their other lineups. I'm pretty into that. I like what they're cooking here with the bench combinations. And obviously Gradey and Jakob have been tethered together quite a bit. I would imagine quickly probably falls into that group of guys once they start to get him back and can kind of fiddle with what their bench staggering is going to look like. But liking the experimentation from Darko Rajakovic for sure with those in-between looks and the different looks they're able to produce. Big V, we're going to leave it there. Thanks so much for being here, buddy. It was great to chat with you. Have anything you want to promote for the good people out there?
Usual stuff. Check out Raptors in 7 for all my analysis and opinion. You can go to Sportsnet for all my NBA coverage in general, and you can follow me on Blue Sky or Twitter. I'm just sending out the same posts on each one, and you can find me on there at Vivek Jacob.
Hell yeah. Everyone go do that. You can find me at woodleyshawn.bsky.social. I've disavowed Twitter because, frankly, I'm bad at social media and want less places I have to do it. This is a great excuse to not do Twitter anymore. I'm on Instagram, Locked On Raptors. You can join the Discord, link in the description. Of course, QR code on the screen if you're watching for the newsletter. The link, if you're not watching, is in the description of the podcast. Please subscribe. It's great. I'll have some more words today about the Raptors and guard play and all that stuff in the Monday newsletter. You get Toxic Positivity Friday, which has always been a hit and super fun, and other game coverage and day-to-day coverage based on whatever the hell I'm thinking about the team on a given day. So go and support there. It's much appreciated. We'll leave you there. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. We'll be back again. I'm going to come back on Tuesday night with a recap of the Raptors-Pistons game, and then I think Wednesday we're going to have our pal Keeks, the stats queen of Raptors Internet, to talk about what stats are real and fake about the Raptors start to the season. That's all coming up as this week continues. Thanks so much for being here. Have a good one. Bye-bye. Ooh, laser show.